Okay, Cannes was an exciting opportunity. I spoke with Andy Fennell, who's arguably one of the most respected marketing executives, I would say, in the world. He runs the marketing for all the Diageo brands, which is a massive portfolio going through Johnny Walker, Captain Morgan, Smirnoff. So highly regarded and highly successful. He was asked to talk at Cannes on what's next for Africa and building brands and working in Africa. And we, being one of his African partner agencies, were asked to work with him to give a creative perspective from a person who's worked in Africa and balance it by a marketeer and a businessman based in London. So it was quite a nice, we called it both sides of the story, the businessman's aspect and the agency creative aspect. And I think that's what is so beautiful about doing work in Africa, is that there's entrepreneurial opportunities for businessmen as well as there are for creative people. So it's just the way you do business can be as exciting and as new and as refreshing as the way you do creativity. So we went up and spoke on Africa, and we picked some key points about Africa, about the extremes, the fact that you might be a rural agrarian African that at the end of the day has a nice pot of your homemade beer and it's cool and it's refreshing and it's nourishing, and yet not more than probably half an hour away in Nigeria, people are heading into a nightclub pouring French champagne. So when you can see the real heritage still at play versus the enormous adoption and a passion for newness and new things and new technology, those are the wonderful extremes. And I think it's almost like clay. You just see it emerging. It's exciting to be part of it. And we spoke about a lot of those things. The fact that Africa has the highest illiteracy rate in the world, yet the first ever university in the world was in Timbuktu in Mali. Those are the extremes. 80% of Kenyans bank from their cell phones, whereas that probably outstrips half of New York and London. Probably 10, 15 years ago, a generation of young Africans were still using pencil and paper at school, and now they've gone right from handwritten to handheld in less than a generation. So they run their lives from the palm of their hands. They interact, they bank, they socialize. And we spoke about those issues. We spoke about these wonderful extremes. And I think the rawness of the opportunity, the freshness of the opportunity was maybe, I suppose, if you work in the more established markets, the insights are a little more apparent, you're maybe a little bit more jaded. I mean, that's not a derogatory term, but you've seen a lot of it before. Whereas Africa is coming out the ground. I think it's growing like wildfire. It's a blank canvas. You can go and do stuff. So we were trying to encourage people to get out there, build their businesses, do business, but do it in a way that might get them challenged again, a bit more entrepreneurial, go back to the roots of their companies and look at how they started first selling their products in the old days. Their routes to market might be different. Informal trade versus formal trade are extreme. Pack sizes and formats are different. How people consume stuff is different. And also, what we often forget about Africa is that there are big brands there. If you look at some of the brands that Unilever puts into people's baskets or bags on a daily basis, from nutrition to soap to laundry to personal care, they're endemic. They're part of the fabric of everyday life, and they kind of get taken for granted, but they're powerful, they're important, and they play a meaningful role. But building on top of that, there are the Porsche Cayennes, there is the French champagne, there are the emergence from into smartphones, out of feature phones. I think a lot of Africans will never own a tabletop computer or a laptop even. They'll be running the world off pads and handheld, and that's incredibly exciting. I think South Africa was like that when we first went into television. We started at the top, and they're starting at the top, and they're embracing it at such a speed. It's quite intoxicating. So we passionately spoke about Africa at Cannes. I think it was a subject that brand owners who are present in Africa would have found interesting, creatives who are looking for fresh territory, new turf and blank canvases would have found it exciting. Probably not everyone's cup of tea, because it is quite daunting. At times it is fraught with some slowness and some red tape, but what a wonderful place to be.